Hey people, I tell you this key, it begins most every line. It's all throughout the Greek. And they say it means and or but. And I tell you all it does is replace the vav. And so you just put a W in this word, a W, a V, or a U, or it can be read and, but it just means connected. And if you look across in the Hebrew, that and is just this vav. And so when you see that key over there in the Greek, that's this vav. It's all it's doing is replacing the one letter on the end here. And this vav is the and. And so I tell you they do the same thing in Hebrew. They'll also replace the key in Hebrew for the vav. And I found a little proof of that. I'm going to see if I could find it again. It was here in Exodus 2:12. I was looking up this ko, and they were teasing this letter here. They were teasing this word, the ko, and the koi, and in the key, and it's right here. This is the K. The dot says read the lower dot, so I read it K-A, and then the ya, the K-A-I, and so that makes it the key. And so what it does, it turns it into a vav. And that's why they'll give this meaning. Most of the time they'll say it means because, some type of because, except you have to go to the key. It might not mean key, it might mean W. And it'll do the same thing in the Greek, and sometimes it'll have a mark. And so in the Greek, when it has the mark, it reads backwards, and it's Y-A, and then the key is a W, so it becomes Yah. And so now it means, what direction. And so, it changes from W-E-N at that time to Yah, the direction in. And so it's a W-A-I-N-A-I-S-H, a wane, a vanish, the vanish, that no one, they've been vanished, there's no one here, the vain, the vanish. And so reading it, with the upper markings, it's Y, W-Y-A-R, Y-R, meaning who are, vanish, V-A-I-N-A-I-S-H, and who are vanished. That's why there's no one there. And so when they put this, so he looked this way and that way, I first assumed that it's talking about one of the multi-faced gods, like Janus and all the Indian gods, and many people had multi-faced gods. You see that right here, J-A-I-N, Janus. And, Ish is just the estimation. And that's what Jain means, having to do with Jainism, having to do with the Hindu religion, Jainism. So Vanish can have a bunch of meanings. It could be proud of one's appearance. And Ish just means it's, an adjective. Or worthless, empty, or to use the name of someone, especially God, without due respect or reverence, vanish. Or not yielding, fruitless, lack of substance or worth. And ain, is zero, nothing, none. And it's ainish, maybe a little bit more than zero. It's where January and Janus come from. And he was a Roman god who stood for beginnings and transitions. So, that transition between the two is vanish. That transition is to get the hell out. But it probably come from the sailors, up north, when the sun had vanished, for them 3 days and there was none. And so Ish doesn't mean one. Usually they say it means man. And Ain doesn't mean no. It's just part of words. So this is the story of birth of Moses. It's one of the longer stories. Most of them, Cain and Abel were both born in one line. But Moses, it takes, 10 lines before he ever gets a name. So I'm going to read this minimal. I'm going to ignore all the marks. I'm just going to recognize the points inside. And these tacks here tell me read the next word backwards and forwards. And so the same, here's that key again. When you're ignoring all the vowel points, this is just a K-A-I. And so it turns this into will us, will U-S. And Willis from Viddle, who wife at habitually. The wife at habitually. So wife means the act of marrying two things up. And it's right here, the Y. You see the Y here means who. The same here means who, and here the Y is who. And here it's, who FH, who FCH, who fuck. And so in this word, when you're reading with the points, it's also the jellicy, who angelici. And you see that's going to help get a better definition for the word king. That's just this LK with an M in front. And so Willis from Viddle, who, the one who's eating, the one who's cooking it up, who fuck it habitually. To fuck at TBAT, tabit, and then YUL, who, habitual who, and doing it all the time. And so this Viddle, VITLY, the Viddle Y, the Viddle who, or Y means how or who. And the way they get this house of it, that's coming from Genesis 1. When he was doing all the dividing up, it was from the Viddle between, the filling between. You see it again when he's dividing up the firmament. It's who Viddle between, who Viddle in, who Viddle of in. And so the difference in the word, the D and the T, they interchange a lot. But, the D means through, and the whole area is filled of in. And a vittul with a T is one certain spot, that mark. T is a mark, so that's the Viddle, meaning that one specific spot, what's going in, that star that's going in it. And so the house is more over here at the daughter, the tabit. And you would put tabs on when that star arose, where its tab was. And its habit, it lives in constant, the habit, where you can usually find it, at tabitual, where it's always there. It's angelicish from Viddle, who wife, who puts the food to the mouth habitually. And it's a big fat bright star, you don't miss it. And what her ease who told Ben, and I done been told that she's easy. What her ought to ki, what erotic, what her ought to give, what ear ought to give, she ought to listen. And with the B-U-A-U-T. This beautiful don't come up till here at the end of this word. This is in with of. This is bono, lanyap. And what her ease, she's easy. What told Ben that I done heard. And what erotica in bonus of beaut, of the beaut, it's fine who. And you remember at the end of Moses' life in 33 when they're telling the story, and they sit down at your feet and everyone receives your words, and your words were made of erotica. And so that's when he's still whispering in her ear. That's what was his words. And so that's why this is written like this. Only when you're reading with the markings, then this turns into a K-A-I. So it's only on another reading. But when you're just reading through with the letters, it's erotica. And then when you're reading with the markings, the directional markings, it's a vav, it's just a W. And that's how it changes up. They do that with several letter combinations. And so this beautiful over here, this is just the bonus. This word means bonus. It means in width of in. It means lanyap. And so this word beautiful, it's not coming until this final B. And it's B-E-U-A-U-T. And it was a beaut. And so it's not just erotica, but, it's what Ra took, the sun, and what you take from the sun, the sun's position. And they totally got the story screwed up, but it explains why you see The women are always a lighter color in ancient art in Egypt. The women always hold a light tan. And it gives another definition for the beautiful. And so their definition of beautiful, looks more like this. It's full grown. A baby girl cannot be beautiful. She got to be growed up. These spaces in between here, that's not beautiful. It should be full grown. It should be beautiful. And so it's talking about the times in here while it's telling the story. And that's why the different spellings. What Ra took it a beaut. And then, XTS, it's in FINE. The beaut, it's fine. It's fine too. She was a beauty. And the beaut, it's fine. It's a good find. And so not hidden but found. And a beaut, it's fine. And then souls, they rich 'em. Souls, they rich 'em for 3 months. So the brightest star in the sky is the Eye of Cyrus, the dog's eye. And at the time when they writ this, when it came up, it let you know that it was the season of inundation, the season of flood. And they spelled it many different ways here too, for the same reason, to fit in the poetry. It was the season of Akhet, and that's the one they'll say is sister. It's your sister-in-law, Akhet. And so at this time, you had a couple weeks to get all your crops up. All this is farms down here in the Nile. And you had a couple weeks to get all your crops up because the water was supposed to come up 30 foot, 60 foot, no telling. All these people farming down here, they had to get all the crops up. And some of them went west and some of them went east when the water went up. That was the division. That was their Janus. And if you look over here across in the Greek, it makes it a whole lot easier to see that it's talking about the heavens. It's talking about the stars. This isn't happening on Earth. And it's in the gastrolabe. The gastrolabe. Your G is silent in a lot of words because it read with the last word. But it's an astrolabe is what it is. And the woman, because she conceived as an astrolabe. The old astrolabos, to shoot the stars. Historically used by astronomers, is able to measure altitude above the horizon of the celestial bodies, day or night. And so when you're trying to breed something, the word is, did it take? Did she take? And that'll be the lab, the astrolabe in the Hebrew. They give it the meaning to take. And so you can see, it's key, so it's just a W, a W, V, or a U. So it's a Ven, V-E-N, the Venge, the Venge of astrolabe. The Venge, many different spellings that cover it. It means the wing, which means the air, and or the winds to blow. To blow means the direction, whatever way the wind blows. To describe a wind, all you can do is describe its direction and its power. And so those would be both words that are given to gods. But though Norwegian, venge, a wing, or a voice, I tell you, that's what's the words coming from the heavens, the direction of the stars is where they're getting the words from. To venge the astrolabe, astri, to take 3 shots, of your astri, 3 stars. That's how we position from. And the lave. The Septuagint got some reading marks in it, but it adds an N over here. This is now 11. It's the 311. That's secret code word for, a chapter of your life is about to end. That's the same, and start with a new one. That's the same as the Fool and the Death card. 311s. But the mark here, he has to read this backwards now, Y-A, and then the key is the W. And so it's the yaw, and that's where that direction was coming from. Twist or oscillate on a vertical axis. And then the mark says, read this, V-E-N. It's the the NE is the B or the V. And so it still reads the same, it's now the yaw, the direction of the wind. VE, and then back here, NG, the venge. So backwards, it's the BE or the VE. And so now it's as strive. The wind, the direction of the wind, a striving, the B is the N. Of striving all the lavin, get directions on all of them. And you see also in here, this word for Levi changed spellings. It's now levy, Levey. You see it twice here. And that helps to define this word here as. And on debt is of this fool's levy. On debt is of this fool's levy. Getting married. As the love and tone together on levy. And look at it here, on debt is of this fool's Levi, it's still levy. And they changed this from as. And the lovin', and he took, that's the one that they is fuck in Hebrew, and he took, it's the lovin'. So that's just more proof that that's what that means. And the loving tone together on levy. And this is all added in this Bible. And it's the sexing, author is a creator. You see it here in this word for took. And I read it wife, W-I-F-E. But it actually comes from, the who via, by way of, fuck, F-O-H, F-O-C-H. And they give the Q the K sound so you don't see that. But you just turn the Q into the H and it reads a lot easier. You see it's the wife and who fuck. And so, angelicish, that means like the stars, The stars was the angels from its house of who. And who fuck at habitually. And so you don't see that to the third time. And you see it when you read on down the story. Because he's talking about got somebody else beside his wife pregnant. And you see it again here, and she took. What fuck. In the Greek, that's the lab. And this 3 months in the Greeks, this is the ministries. And so they sheltered in the ministries, but that's not right. It's ought to stay on the skept. The skep is on. He was skeptic of. The skep is on what to the ministries. And he was hiding out because he done said something about, I ain't so sure about how y'all running this ministry. And will easel cycle would it spin? The WL and the AE, the A, read this backwards, E becomes the ESL, the easel, what you set up to do your art on, where God's painting the earth, and where the easel and the CY, and then back the other way, CLE, and the cycle, hood. This is the word they use always when she took, going around, still yet again, and it's always used for the second child, you'll see it, and she oohed, and will easel cycle, who would it spin, and what fuck will it have it, backwards, WLW, will what have it, will what have it, and what fuck will what of it, the game what come her in, come her of zipped, the zipped, zipper, what some beat the yield, what some in soup all, in the supervisor, in soup all tops put they are, they were placed all on top, and what some beat the yield, and what some boss of all, sep, the sep they are, the boss of all sept they are. So it's talking about the astrology. They have to have their kid born at the right time, because whatever day you was born of, that was your job, that was your sign. And you see how they got this in the reeds by the bank of the Nile is all sept they are. You know, all the septic tank they are. They all using the Nile for the toilet, for the septic. You know, and that's where, you know, Narmer come from. He wasn't Narmer, he was the official. He was cleaning up the river. You know, he was the boss of all sept they are. All the riverbank. And here's a good one, you know, and stood his sister far off. I'm going to tell you how far off she stood. She was in America. You can see this H, you know, it's usually pronounced as a CH. The America is a far off place. So what tax in actum rich fled? You know, what tax in actum? And so this is, you know, the Aket. And it comes in taxes by enriching the land, enriching the soil, and the rich they fled. And so it was, you know, in August, it was beginning of the summer back then, you know, and it was hot, and she was a hot too, you know, your sister. It was your sister-in-law, actually. But this Aket, you can see this is the same symbol that was on the Narmer palette, represents the septic system, the sept of Aket, the sept, separation, Aket. And that's what your septic tank does. That's what this represents. And it separates, you know, the clean water from what the plants can eat. But, you know, what a tax in an act, A-C-H-T, is U-M, in actum. In actum. That's your sister-in-law when she's babysitting, you know, in actum. And you'll find out here in this word for, you know, go nurse my child, nephew. So what tax in actum rich fell dole? And, you know, I always read the O-E is the odal. I'm reading this without all the marks now, just the letters. So it's the O-E is the odal. I read it odal, but I think you just replace it with the L-E or the O-L-E, the old, instead of the odal. And so this is, you know, what tax in actum rich fell the dole, and fell dole me. And then backwards, you know, the soya cell, like a carousel that goes around with the cycle up here. And it's the soil cell, you know, every year it comes around again, and it brings the soy cell to go around. And so a dole, you know, a dole is your portion, you know, your little bit of government portion. You know, your dole is your benefit paid by the government, a charitable gift, or a lot or destiny, what you've been doled, what you've been given. And what tax in actum, you know, that's your government, what tax in actum. So, you know, this is God's talking here. In actum rich, what tax in actum rich? You had a big tax this year. You got a lot doled out to you. Fell dole, fell your portion, me the soil cell, where the soil goes around. And so here, you know, it's talking about the water, you know, the water, W-A-T-T-E-R. And it's water, and it's what her, you know, she is the water. And what her debit, you know, your daughter, she's always in your pocket. What her debit. And it's the water debt. And that's why you have them two words that sound the same with a B in them, the debt. And what her debitor backwards, H-O-R, and what her debitor, parole, and then two E's, alerts all, and tell everybody, you know, she's paroling. When she gets too deep, you know, she paroles out of the banks. Parole, alert, you know, E-L-R-H-S, alerts, and it's the all Rex, the all king. So this isn't the king. Nobody ever heard of the pharaoh. That's something that was made up. But what her debit, her parole, alerts all Ray hair. To Ray hair is this woman coming out of the water and shaking out her hair. What to Ray hair. And so this is the only reason the women went down there to the river, to show off their hair. But this also represents the mouth of the Nile, where it rays out, where the Ray hair. When erotic. When eroties. Her maidens, this is all about the words of Moses were made of erotic. And to Ray hair, and what her debitor parole Rex, all Ray hair. When Arati, the elect, all did, and her maidens walked along the side with her, they was the Aratis, and all the little hot chicks with her, the elect, all did, backwards and forwards, D-I-D, all did hair, they all did their hair, to what her it habit backwards, and what her it habit, it be in took this of, what sail at it mom to the shape, the to take he. And so when you read it with other directional markings, look a little closer in it, and it's talking about the daughter of the pharaohs, not the daughter. She's a parolee, with some bad habits, and what her debitor parole alerts. All rage they are when Arati elect all did the jar. What her it habit it be, and took the soup. The soup. That's an alcoholic's drink. The soup. Where's my soup? And what sail it and sent at it the mom to take it, to take he. And so she wasn't going to get a baby out of the water. Her mom was going to get the bottle of soup from her that she was taking to the river with her. And top touch. You can see here, if you just change that F with a P, is what top touch. And top touch to trees. And top touch the trees, the top of the trees. And that means, the three, the TR, the AE is ES. And top touch the trees, what? And so to top touch the trees, what? Top touch the trees means new. And all around Egypt, they had these water markings. And so you had a single water marking, meant low waters. And that was Na. And when there was two, it was Ni, when there's two waters. And when there was three waters, it's new. Three waters is new. And that's the highest water marking. And so three ends, when top touched the threes. It was a high flood year when top touched the trees. What? Or you might read that, is a top it to threes. What? She had opened it and then she saw. But a top it to threes. What? Delilah, the yield. Delilah. And when you the lie through lie, the yield, what you get out of it. The lie yield, wiener, honor. Back what come of alive. To wake up the back. Like, I get back. That's nasty. And the back what come of alive, And so back was a god. The god of nasty tasting alcohol. Back, you keep drinking it, And so that's a god. And the back would come alive. Same as jealous is the god of laughter. And what Tamer, my lady, hoverum is. These are angel hovering over. And what Tamer, my lady, hoverum is. Hovering over. And that's what it starts, who jellikish from the victual who wife it habitually. It's a huge one. And what tamer aketu all to better for. Tammer is to tap on it. That's what you do when you tammering that pussy, tammering on it. A ball peen hammer shaping metal. The river beating on the sides of the river. What tamarack to, the inundation, all to better for. And so it's also, your sister-in-law. Hey, it's better that, we got a surrogate to hold this baby. Or, yeah, it's better that he's with my sister. To tamarack too, all to better for. Oh, he alka fratty lick. Oh, he alka fratty lick. He gets drunk and goes to fraternize, knocking on the wrong door, the daughter. And with Tamara Hoodoo, all the better for. Oh, alka fratty lick has 'em in fit men hover it. Has 'em in fit men hover it. A woman, a nurse from the Hebrews. Now she was hotter than hell, and she got fit men hovering over it. Has 'em in fit men hover. And this is word men. It's the symbol of men. They cut it in stone to let everybody know, this is a man. This is men. This hieroglyph that looks like a Lego, or if you were drawing, your army, you got many men standing. And tamarack too, all the better for. Oh, he alky a fratelic. And you can see, when you read it with upper markings, there's an I, and not just has he men, but it's has he many fit. Is a many fit men hover it. What inflict? FLK, what inflict it? The lie yield. The lie, Delilah. The lie, what comes out of it, the yield. It's for, oh, he alky. He alky a fratty lick. Oh, alky fratty. He's drunk and going to the wrong bedroom door. To the better for, to the daughter. So what Tamar Act 2, she was the second act. And what Tamar Act 2, all the better for. Oh, Hulka Fratty, he was the Hulk. It was huge, HALK. Oh, Hulka Fratalickism, and as a minifitum in hover it. What inflict it? The lie yield. And so they're talking about how big Moses' dick is. And Tamarella, the better for. And Tamar backwards, Ella, E-L-E. Ella, they get that right. Ella means the feminine part of this tammering operation. And Tamarella, the better for. Oh, licky what like. Oh, licky what like hold me. What a fur it at mom. What a fur it at mom, the yield. The child calls it mom. And so what a fur it, the mom, the yield. That means, the yield, calling it mom. But it's also, it's better that my daughter have my heir, and to offer it mom, the yield. You give your mother the child. And so if you ever find yourself nursing a child that you didn't give birth to, it's probably your nephew, and they nephew. And I will give you your wages. So took the woman is to any aton it, the cracksy crack. The cracksy crack what fuck has says, the yield what nephew. And so they're still cooking up the baby here, but they didn't want you to know about all the eroticism in the Bible, so they made up all this story that jammed over it. But the baby's not even born yet. But I had to splice this in a couple of pieces. My program's getting slow, so I'll get back on that line 9. I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.